The Antichrist's empire will be laser-focused on these three nations. First, an empire unlike anything this world has ever witnessed will emerge, and nations will bow down. This empire will be led by a single man, the Antichrist. You're going to be shocked when you discover the three nations that he will target first. By the time I reveal the third nation, you'll understand why this particular order is significant and why the rest of the world will fall in line like dominoes. Nation number 1, Israel. Why would Jesus instruct his followers to flee into the wilderness? What are they running from and what are they running towards? Today, we're going to delve into a mystery concerning the end times, one that Jesus himself spoke about, one that the book of Revelation confirms, and one that will impact Israel in a way the world has never seen before. Because when the Antichrist comes to power, some will choose to stay, but others will run. And those who heed Jesus' warning may be the only ones to survive. Notice how specific his warning is. Jesus didn't simply say, "Flee from evil," or "Avoid dangerous places." He explicitly stated, "Let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains." Judea corresponds to modern-day Israel and the West Bank. The very heart of the Holy Land will become the most perilous place on earth during the tribulation. But why would Jesus tell people to escape from the land that God promised to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob? This warning carries urgent relevance for our time. We can already see the stage being set for its fulfillment. Israel is encircled by enemies who seek its destruction. The United Nations issues more condemnations against Israel than against any other nation on the planet. There's even more to unpack regarding this warning. Jesus possessed a deep understanding of history. Revelation 12 verse 6 tells us, "Then the woman fled into the wilderness, where she has a place prepared by God, that they should feed her there 1,260 days." God has already prepared safe havens in the wilderness for those who obey and leave Judea. These aren't just random hiding spots. They are specifically chosen locations where God will provide for his people during the last 3.5 years of the tribulation. However, this warning isn't solely directed at the Jewish people residing in Israel. It applies to anyone who happens to be in that region when the tribulation commences. If you're planning a trip to the Holy Land, considering relocating to Israel, or have family or business interests there, Jesus' warning is crystal clear. When you witness the abomination of desolation, don't hesitate to gather your belongings. Don't delay. Flee to the mountains without delay. Your survival will hinge on how quickly you obey his command to leave. Nation number 2, the takeover of the Three Kings Empire. The Antichrist will rise to power, but before he can rule over all nations, he will confront and annihilate three powerful kings. This isn't just a guess or speculation. It's explicitly stated in prophecy as clear as day. Before whom three fell, and he shall subdue three kings, as it says in Daniel 7 verse 8. Why these three in particular? What do they represent? And could we already be witnessing the pieces falling into place? The prophecy of the 10 nations originates directly from the Bible. It's found in the books of Daniel and Revelation. Daniel 7 describes 10 horns on a terrifying beast. Revelation 17 verse 12 states, "The 10 horns which you saw are 10 kings who have received no kingdom as yet, but they receive authority for 1 hour as kings with the beast." These 10 kings symbolize 10 nations or leaders who will ascend to power in the last days. They will collaborate under the Antichrist, establishing a worldwide system that opposes God. But here's the crucial question. Are we already seeing indications of this happening? Let's examine Daniel's vision more closely. In chapter 7, Daniel sees 4 beasts, each representing a kingdom. However, the final beast is different, stronger, more terrifying, and adorned with 10 horns. These horns represent 10 future kings or nations. That's not all. In Revelation 17, the Apostle John also sees 10 horns, mirroring Daniel's vision. Together, these visions provide a glimpse into a future group, a coalition of 10 leaders who will rise together during the end times. The question is, are these nations already beginning to cooperate today? Let's take a closer look. It gets even more intriguing here. Daniel saw a small horn emerge among the 10, speaking boastfully and seizing control. This small horn represents the Antichrist. He will exploit the 10 nations to establish his dominion over the entire world. But here's the twist. These 10 nations may appear strong and unified, but they're inherently weak, like iron mixed with clay in the statue from Daniel 2. Could this inherent weakness help us identify these nations today? Stay with me, because we're about to connect some significant pieces. Now, let's slow down and focus, because this is where things get really relevant. We've discussed the prophecy and the visions in Daniel and Revelation, but what about the world as it exists today? Could these 10 nations be forming alliances right under our noses without us even realizing it? Let's connect the dots. Throughout history, kingdoms and alliances have risen and fallen, from Babylon to Rome, but none have ever collectively ruled the entire world. Then, in the last century, something profound occurred. The world began to feel smaller, not because its physical dimensions shrank, but because of advances in technology, increased global trade, and shared global challenges that compelled nations to collaborate. Following 2 devastating world wars, the United Nations was established, promising to maintain peace and security throughout the world. Subsequently, NATO, the European Union, and other organizations emerged, uniting countries in various ways. But could this growing unity be paving the way for something far more significant, something the Bible prophesied? The European Union frequently enters the conversation when people discuss the 10 nations. Why? Because it closely resembles the picture that Daniel saw. The EU began as a trade organization, but evolved into a political and military force. Here's the interesting aspect. Some Bible scholars suggest that the EU is analogous to the feet of iron and clay from Daniel's statue, strong in some respects, but weak in others. It may project an image of power, but its internal divisions render it unstable. Could this be the nascent form of the 10-nation alliance? However, the EU isn't the only entity of its kind. Worldwide, there's a push for regional unity. In Asia, we have ASEAN. In Africa, there's the African Union. The Middle East has the Arab League. These groups are gaining influence, shaping trade policies, and even engaging in military cooperation. Could the 10 nations of prophecy emerge from these regions? It's certainly possible. The Bible doesn't explicitly name them. It simply states that they will unite under the Antichrist. As these alliances strengthen, the stage could be getting set for the fulfillment of the prophecy. Here's another point to consider. Global challenges are accelerating the need for unity. Climate change, pandemics, and fragile economies are compelling nations to cooperate in unprecedented ways. However, unity comes at a cost to freedom. Revelation 17 verse 13 states, "These are of one mind, and they will give their power and authority to the beast." Could these pressing problems compel nations to sacrifice their independence in exchange for the promise of peace and security? And if that happens, whom will they ultimately follow? The pieces of the puzzle are gradually falling into place. But what's the next step? Could there be a pivotal moment that forces these 10 nations to unite? Let's delve deeper. Now, consider the role of money. Trade alliances serve as the backbone of international cooperation, but they also create interdependence among nations. If one nation relies on another for essential goods and services, it can influence political and even military decisions. For instance, the European Union isn't solely about trade. It has its own currency and laws that impact millions of people. The World Trade Organization and trade agreements like NAFTA have reshaped entire economies. But here's the potential issue. When one nation experiences economic hardship, it affects all the others. Could this interconnectedness be the very thing that binds the 10 nations together? Technology represents another significant factor. In Daniel's time, the kind of worldwide teamwork we see today would have been unimaginable. But technology is rapidly dismantling borders. The internet connects people instantaneously. Governments are utilizing artificial intelligence, data networks, and digital currencies to enhance efficiency and control. Here's something to ponder. Digital currencies, like Bitcoin or central bank digital currencies, CBDCs, are revolutionizing how we use money. Imagine a scenario where all nations adopt the same digital currency. It would simplify trade transactions, but also grant immense control to a single centralized system. Could this be part of the 10-nation plan, facilitating the rise of a global leader? And let's not overlook the military dimension. Organizations like NATO demonstrate how nations can combine their forces for collective defense. But as these alliances expand, so does their power. Today, we see nations sharing advanced weaponry, conducting joint training exercises, and preparing for global threats. Now envision a scenario where a group of 10 nations consolidates their armies into a single, formidable force. Revelation 17 verse 12 states, "The 10 horns which you saw are 10 kings who have received no kingdom as yet, but they receive authority for 1 hour as kings with the beast." That suggests their power will be immense, but fleeting. Could we be witnessing the initial stages of this right now? But here's where it becomes even more grave. The Bible clearly states that these 10 nations won't act independently. They will surrender their power to the Antichrist. This world leader will promise peace and solutions to global problems, but at a significant cost. Revelation 13 verse 7 warns us, "And it was granted to him to make war with the saints and to overcome them. And authority was given him over every tribe, tongue, and nation." The 10 nations will unite under his control, creating a system that appears strong but will ultimately crumble. The signs are all around us. We see global alliances, technological advancements, and economic interdependence like never before. But what's the missing element? How will these 10 nations ultimately coalesce? Let's continue our exploration. History demonstrates that unity often emerges from crisis. Wars, pandemics, and financial meltdowns can compel nations to collaborate. Now, imagine a crisis so profound that it shakes the entire world, demanding immediate and coordinated action. Could it be a financial collapse, a cyber attack that cripples major economies, or an unprecedented natural disaster? Whatever it is, the Bible indicates that chaos will precede the rise of the 10 nations. In Revelation 6 verse 6, when the third seal is opened, it ushers in economic turmoil, a quart of wheat for a denarius and 3 quarts of barley for a denarius, and do not harm the oil and the wine. This could be the catalyst that forces nations to unite for a common cause. So, which nations might fulfill this prophecy? The Bible doesn't explicitly identify them, but it provides clues. Many Bible scholars believe the 10 nations will originate from the remnants of the Roman Empire, which once held sway over Europe, parts of the Middle East, and North Africa. But what about other global powers like China, Russia, or the United States? Could they be part of this group, or will they remain outside of it, opposing it? These are questions that continue to captivate the attention of Bible scholars and believers alike. Remember the feet of iron and clay in the statue from Nebuchadnezzar's dream? This image is crucial for understanding the 10 nations. Iron represents strength, perhaps in terms of military or economic power. Clay signifies weakness, indicating internal divisions within the group. This aligns with what we observe today. Nations may collaborate toward a shared objective, but their unity is often fragile, characterized by disagreements and mistrust. Could this be why the Bible describes the kingdom as partly strong and partly brittle? It may appear formidable on the surface, but its foundation will be unstable. Consider the European Union as an example. It's one of the most powerful alliances in the world, yet it's far from perfect. Brexit demonstrated that unity can fracture when national interests clash with group objectives. Now, imagine 10 nations attempting to govern the world collectively. Can you envision the arguments and tensions that would unfold behind closed doors? Yet, this very chaos could be what the Antichrist exploits. If he presents himself as the one capable of resolving these problems, the nations will trust him, at least for a time. The Bible emphasizes that this group, regardless of how powerful it may appear, will not endure. Revelation 17 verse 14 states, "These will make war with the Lamb, and the Lamb will overcome them, for he is Lord of lords and King of kings, and those who are with him are called, chosen, and faithful." Even though the 10 nations will rise to prominence, their rebellion against God will ultimately lead to their downfall. This serves as both a warning and a source of comfort. For believers, it reinforces the truth that God's kingdom is unshakable. For the world, it's a wake-up call to heed the signs before it's too late. So, what does this mean for us now? Are we merely passive observers, or are we actively participating in this prophecy as it unfolds? Let's continue forward to discover the answer. Consider the state of the world today. Every headline seems to convey the same message. The world is becoming increasingly interconnected and fragile. Global unity is no longer just a lofty ideal. It's being promoted as an imperative. But here's the underlying truth about unity. It's a double-edged sword. On the surface, it promises peace and progress. Leaders convene for grand summits, shake hands, deliver speeches, and formulate plans to save the world. And yes, it all appears polished and meticulously orchestrated, like a well-rehearsed performance. However, beneath the veneer, there's a palpable tension. Nations desire to collaborate, but they also seek to safeguard their own interests. This precarious form of unity precisely mirrors what the Bible depicts in Daniel's vision. But here's the dilemma. Each time a crisis emerges, the proposed solutions often entail relinquishing greater degrees of independence and freedom. Borders blur, laws are amended, and more power is concentrated in the hands of global leaders and organizations. Could these crises be preparing the way for the 10 nations the Bible foretells? Could today's fervent pursuit of unity be about more than just addressing pressing problems? If so, who is truly in control? Here's what's both astonishing and frightening. The alliances we see taking shape today may appear robust, but they are inherently fragile. Like iron and clay, they don't fully meld. Nations may concur on trade or climate matters, but the moment their own needs take precedence, fissures begin to appear. However, there's another aspect we can't afford to ignore: technology. In our era, technology connects people in ways Daniel could never have envisioned. Satellites monitor the entire Earth. Digital currencies are transforming how economies operate. Artificial intelligence tracks everything from consumer purchases to national security measures. On one hand, these advancements are remarkable, addressing problems and simplifying life. But on the other hand, they concentrate power in the hands of an increasingly smaller number of individuals. Imagine a world where every dollar you spend, every place you visit, and every decision you make is tracked and monitored. Is it far-fetched to suggest that technology could facilitate the unification of the 10 nations? Or that it could provide the Antichrist with the tools he needs to exert his dominion? The pieces are converging more rapidly than we realize. I understand that this information can feel overwhelming. It's easy to look at current events and conclude that the world is unraveling. But remember this: none of this catches God by surprise. The Bible isn't just an ancient text. It's a roadmap illuminating what is happening now and what will happen in the future. Regardless of how chaotic things become, God's plan continues to unfold precisely as He has foretold.